By now, I think we can all agree that X-Men the Animated Series is one of the greatest cartoons to ever hit our Saturday mornings. But what if I told you it was one of the first iterations of a shared MCU? And it happened right in front of our eyes, and we probably didn't even notice it. You're probably thinking, how? When you should be thinking, who? Meet Larry Houston.
It's a show of integrity. I mean, it's a show basically that we had, there was like a group of 3 or 4 of us that we had been trying to get that on the air for like 12 years.
Larry is an OG of the cartoon industry, having worked on a ton of classics like Thundarr the Barbarian, G.I. Joe, The Real Ghostbusters, Batman the Animated Series, Captain Planet, and Bucky O'Hare. Larry was also one of the original producers on X-Men the Animated Series.
We included the X-Men into like Spider-Man Amazing Friends, some episodes, The Firestar is Born. We tried to really get the X-Men and give out a taste to the networks back then, and then we got the financing to actually do Pride of the X-Men. So we put our best foot forward, we got it out there, and we had crickets.
Wait till I get my claws on him, he'll be talking out the other side.
Pride of the X-Men aired in 1989, 3 years before the animated series. It didn't necessarily go anywhere, but it did inspire X-Men the arcade game.
Welcome to die.
Back then, I think that was 1986. I had 2 bosses at the time, it was Stan Lee and Margaret Lash. Now fast forward about 6 years later, they had this brand new upstart network starting, Fox Kids. And she became the head of Fox Kids Animation. And once she did that, she gave me and several other people a call and say, X-Men, we're going to do it. Because
of the lukewarm reception of Pride of the X-Men, Lesh had to put her job on the line to finally get X-Men greenlit. Showrunner Eric Lewald has said he didn't know much about the X-Men before the show, but Houston sure did, and he wanted to keep it true to the comics.
We wanted to do the X-Men book as it was written. And I have my philosophy is that I like to respect the source material, and when you're adapting it to another medium, you know, I try and keep it as accurate as possible. I mean, because it's a book and you're going to like film, you have to adapt it. So you got to make changes, but you only make changes if you have to, not because you can. And so we tried to be as accurate as I can. I would bring in my collection of comic books and to make sure all the books and costumes were accurate. And we were fighting for the integrity of the show because they wanted to put in funny animals, they wanted talking cars and all that stuff. And we had several battles on that to try and, you know, to the point where there was one meeting we all had to say, well, if you want to do this, it's like all 5 of us should say, then we're not the people for your job. And we were actually going to leave.
Energy blast, huh? Here's one from a pro.
X-Men debuted on Fox Kids on October 12, 1992, quickly becoming a must-watch every Saturday morning.
My fellow Americans, I am an idiot.
If you watch it back today, you'll notice how much this show immersed you into the X-Men world, including cameos from characters within the larger Marvel universe, thus becoming the first iteration, or one of the first iterations, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And good old Larry Houston is a big reason why that came to be.
When I was a kid, DC, which was National Periodic Publications, they controlled all the distribution of this little upstart Marvel. And Stan, trying to cross-promote the books, would have Thor flying through a Spidey book. I mean, at the bottom it says, if you want to see where Thor is going, buy this, you know, issue Tales of whatever. And so for me, I remember that as a kid, and I wanted to put that into the X-Men universe. And so I tried to populate it with other X-Men characters, but I would only insert them into shows into the scenes, as long as it didn't interrupt the original story.
I don't know about you, but spotting these deep-cut Marvel characters in the background made the show even better, and bolstered my nerd cred. In my eyes, anyway.
If you're a kid and you see that, it would really, you know, heighten the excitement for the show. And then for next week, there'll be an anticipation of like what other characters are going to be introduced to the show. And I think that helped the excitement and the popularity of the show was the cameos.
Larry learned that getting these characters into the show was not going to be easy. It was going to require some cleverness and some high-tier trickery.
Early on in doing the series, that I wanted to use Spider-Man. And I put it, you know, we drew it up, put it through, and they said no. I'm going, but we're all on the same station. And they said, they never gave a real answer other than no. Okay, fine. When we had an episode called Slave Island, a lot of the writers didn't know the mythology as well as I do. as well as I did, sorry. And they had all these mutants that were slaves called Mutant 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, what I did was I brought my books in. I said, okay, make this Blob, make this Mystique, make this Sunfire, make this North Star. I started populating with the existing characters, but I never used their real names. So Blob was number 1, Mutant number 1, Mystique was number 2, that, and so on and so on. I used Black Panther once, and he was African Mutant number 3. There was the Watcher, who was he was a mutant alien somewhere on the moon. Thor was like a mutant Norseman or something like that. And when I put that into the system, I didn't hear anything. It's like, okay, now I figured it out. So then I started adding it to the show, to different places, and adding like Deadpool and stuff like that to the series, and just never called them by their real names. And it was, you know, what we send in for approval were black and white copies. So as long as it wasn't in color, nobody recognized us. Like, all right, that's right. So that was the reason, and that's how they got into the shows. The kids could see it and get excited about seeing this and that.
And that right there is what makes you a f***ing legend, Larry. You were an integral part in creating one of the greatest cartoons ever, and possibly inspired the Marvel Cinematic Universe we enjoy today. What do you guys think? Is this a stretch? Are you furiously typing that Spider-Man and his amazing friends technically did it first? Let us know in the comments below.